Welcome to a podcast named Tim. I'm Zach, and today we're doing another Mandalorian review. Of course, it's Chapter 11 entitled The Heiress. As always, there are going to be spoilers ahead, so if you've not seen the episode, pause, go watch it, come back here. And of course, leave comments below on your thoughts on the episode, Mandalorian as a whole, the show, what have you, but just make sure you give a thumbs up to the video and subscribe. So, the latest chapter of the Mandalorian saga is a good one as always. A little bit different than the last couple episodes. I think some people, not I, but some people were complaining about a little bit too episodic, too fillery. They wanted to get some lore, they wanted to get some story, and it was sprinkled in here or there. But we got full force episode 3, which is what they did last year in the first season of Mandalorian. The first 2 episodes more episodic. The third episode, really, if I remember correctly, that was the episode where the Mandalorians all showed up with their jetpacks, and we found out a lot more about his background and the way and all that. So, again, episode 3 or chapter 3, chapter 3 and now chapter 11, very similar in that regard. But of course, we are following up from chapter 10. The Mandalorian lands on Trask. He is delivering the Frog Lady to meet Frog Man. They're very happy. They have their eggs that they can now hatch. And he is again looking for other Mandalorians. The Frog Man points him out to a bar, because that's where all information is exchanged in Star Wars and Westerns. You go to the cantina. There's a Quarren who says he knows where some of the Mandalorians are, and if you know your Star Wars lore, Quarrens, you have Mon Calamari, and you have Quarren who are from the same planet. Typically in stories, Mon Calamari good guy, Quarren bad guy, and so a little suspicious, a little fishy, if you will. And so they're going out, and they're on a boat, which is really cool. I don't remember how many times we've actually ever seen just an actual boat floating around in Star Wars. I know they had that quick shot of kind of the pleasure cruise from The Last Jedi on Canto Bight, but this is like full on, fisherman rig. We're going out to boat, going out sailing. And while they're out there, we get a incredibly WTF moment. The baby, the child, gets launched into some kind of sea monster that eats it up. Of course, you see that it locks itself in its little container that it rides around in. But yeah, that was like, oh, Jesus. I'm sure everyone else was, immediately jumping at the screen. Obviously, you knew the baby was going to be safe, but you never know. And the Mandalorian gets trapped as well. Here we get, just like Chapter 3, some Mandalorians show up to save Din Djarin. This time, though, they take off their helmet, and he immediately is freaking out. He's like, who are you? And you're not Mandalorians. Where did you get that from? Of course, at least some of the audience know the 3 people that are there are one of them, and it's Bo-Katan. What's interesting about this, a couple things. One, there have been 3 kind of big reveals from previous lore that have happened for the Mandalorian. One being the Darksaber, which I don't think someone who didn't know the lore needed to know. They can see it's a cool-looking black lightsaber. That's all they need to know. Cobb Vanth from earlier this season, which, again, you don't really need to know the background for Cobb Vanth, and they explained it very well in the episode, but all you need to know is it's clearly not Boba Fett, and it's someone wearing Boba Fett's armor. I don't know how the Bo-Katan reveal will go for kind of people who haven't dove in deep to the Star Wars lore, because she's an integral part of Mandalore's history. And they try and hint at it and talk about the Darksaber and everything, but they didn't really get into quite how important she was to the Mandalorian people and the role she played. It's not necessary, but I just wonder. I don't know if it was as impactful when she was revealed. But anyway, she is there, and we do find out that Din and his squad of Mandalorians are actually called the Watch, which are basically religious zealots that are trying to bring back the old ways. I don't know if this is just the next evolution of Death Watch. It would make sense in some respects, so maybe that's the case. But anyway, we find out that he is part of the Watch. They would like to. They are willing to help him, and but they need to help. He needs help with a job first, as always. So he delivers the baby to the frog people who have now hatched their eggs, their little tadpoles and everything around, and which I was so worried that Baby Yoda was going to eat the actual live child in front of these parents, but he did not. He behaved himself. But they go on a mission. Basically, they are trying to go steal some weapons from an Imperial ship that's going to be leaving. While they're there, it's great action sequence. Shouldn't say that Sasha Banks is one of the WWE wrestlers, one of the 3 Mandalorians, along with Bo-Katan, played by Katie Sackhoff, who does the voice for Bo-Katan in the Star Wars animated series. So that was really cool that she got to do the actual live action role for that. It's a successful mission as always, but just great hallway, just tight quarters shooting, and just made the Mandalorians look awesome as always. And we kind of see, if you read the Aftermath trilogy, you know that the Empire at this point is, and it's also mentioned in the Alphabet Squadron books, the Empire is kind of morphing into the Rebels in some respect, where they're much more kamikaze in some respects, and they don't really know how to be the underdog. And so what's interesting is Moff Gideon pops up when the Mandalorians have clearly taken the ship, and he's like, you know what to do. And they just start to fly the plane down, or the ship down, like they're going to just take everyone with them. And luckily, they do stop that from happening. Bo-Katan asks the senior officer, does Moff Gideon have the artifact? I don't think she actually says the Darksaber, but that's what she's looking for, obviously, because she was the last person to have it before Moff Gideon. Again, I don't know how deep they're going to go into that, or if we're going to get more episodes with her to explain this, but she's looking for the Darksaber, which, if you have watched anything or know the background of it, basically, if you have the Darksaber, you're in charge of Mandalore. So you're the best Mandalorian. End of discussion. So the guy says basically, like, if you're asking me, he has it. And she does change the deal on Din Djarin midway through, and he doesn't really appreciate that. But either way, they get the job done, and she gives him the information he has asked for, which is she has promised to deliver him information on Jedis. And it's not just vague information. She says, go to this planet, go to the city, and you're going to be looking for none other than Ahsoka Tano. Of course, this makes sense, because Ahsoka and Bo-Katan had a long history in the Rebels, Clone Wars, and etc. But again, if you haven't watched those, I don't know how impactful, or I don't know how many people know Ahsoka Tano and her connection to Mandalore and her background and everything and where she is at this point. And so it's just interesting to see. I don't know how this landed for people who aren't huge Star Wars fans who have dove in and read everything, but. So we're going to get Ahsoka, obviously. We've gotten Cobb Vanth, we've gotten Bo-Katan, we're going to get Ahsoka. I would assume that's going to be episode 5, only because I believe Dave Filoni wrote and directed that episode, and he's the one who created the character for the Clone Wars, so we probably have an episode in between of getting to her. But in the end, we're off again on another adventure. The Razor Crest has been slightly repaired by Mount Calamari, but I should say when they landed the ship earlier in the episode, it kind of does it's falling down, and you think it's going to crash, and he stops it, and then it falls over into the water, and it's a great. I laughed out loud. I don't think I've laughed that loud in this show, but it's somewhat repaired from this Mon Calamari. Clearly, still a little beat up. The Mandalorian crew of Bo-Katan and her followers did offer Din a place in their crew whenever he wants it. And he turned him down. He says, I have my mission. And so, but I'm sure they will be back at some point for another adventure. But all in all, another good episode. Again, very story heavy. It was interesting to get that background on The Watch. And waiting to see if Bo-Katan pops up more in Moff Gideon. And also the characters from the first season, I believe, Grief Karga and I can't remember the woman's name. I'm curious to see if they're going to pop up, and if so, when. But another good episode of The Mandalorian. Leave me your thoughts below. What did you think of the Bo-Katan reveal? Would you have liked more explained? And are you excited to see Ahsoka Tano here in a few episodes? Rumored to be played by Rosario Dawson. And do you think Sabine Wren will be showing up? Are we going to get an update on their search for Ezra? Because that's where we left off with them last. There's a lot of possibilities here. But we'll see what happens, and see you next time here on a podcast named Tim.